Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today starts a super exciting series where we get to go over some of the most fantastic flight sim gear available on the market today, and that is through Virpil. Today we're going to be taking a look at the T-50 CM3 Base, the CM2 Grip, a 200mm extension, some desk mounts, as well as the CM3 Throttle from Virpil. Stick around, you are not going to want to miss this.
If you are interested in acquiring any of my Overkill's tutorial guides for Microsoft Flight Simulator, please consider joining me on Patreon. Patreon subscribers level tier 2 and above have access to all of my guides, as well as any future updates and future guides that will be coming down the road. Link to Patreon can be found in the description below. All right, guys, please do not skip ahead, as there's a lot of information that I want you guys to hear before we get started. First and foremost, there are chapters down in the description, so if you guys are interested in a specific part of these videos, feel free to jump ahead to those. Those are there for your convenience. Secondly, this is going to be approximately 2 or 3, possibly 4 videos long. Parts 1 and 2 are going to be the unboxing, configuration, installation, customization, tips and tricks for both the T-50 CM3 Base, the T-50 CM2 Grip, as well as the 200mm extension and the version 4 desk mount that you're seeing on the screen. Video number 2 will be doing the exact same thing, but with the T-50 CM3 Throttle, which comes on the screen now, and then the version 4 desk mount for it as well. Both videos will end with the required software configuration, as well as any installation tips and tricks. There's a couple with the Throttle you're going to want to watch for, so make sure you guys pay attention to that on video number 2. And then both videos will also end with live performance and video footage from DCS World, while being able to see the sticks and on camera as well. I do want to also remind you guys that although Virpil did provide this equipment, please remember I have no problem calling out the negative as I see it. If I feel like it's not worth the money, I will absolutely be the one to tell you guys. I will call out any flaws or issues that I have with the product as I come across them, and be as transparent as humanly possible. I've been given full reign from Virpil to say whatever I feel needs to be said, and it's important for you as my viewers to hear. I will tell you guys, though, that through this experience, I have very little to complain about. This particular intro was recorded after the installation footage and configuration footage was already complete. There's a couple little things here and there, but for the most part, I have been absolutely blown away by this product. The quality and design of these devices are absolutely above par and some of the best I have ever seen before. Very, very impressed. Stick around, guys, and you're going to find out why. So first up, like I said, we're going to be starting with the T-50 CM3 Base. Now, the way Virpil has done their configurations, you have the base and then you have the grip that you can purchase, and you can swap them out based on which grip that you're wanting to use. It's a very, very intelligent design and opens up a lot of window for different customizations and configurations dependent on the simulator that you are looking to use them in. The packaging was fantastic. All of the boxes that you guys see here were actually inside of another box, and then they're boxed independently inside. So everything was very, very secure and very, very safe, which I was very impressed with, because actually when I got the box that was shipped in UPS, it had a big hole in the side of it. So we know that some of these delivery companies don't always treat products the best, and it was nice to know that Virpil took the extra step to make sure they're safe. The CM3 Base here, it has a ton of weight to it. This thing is very, very well constructed. You have 2 different ports there where you can adjust the dry clutches, which we'll talk about later. And then you have these 2 plugs up on top, which enable you to actually adjust the tension of the cams. So you have multiple points at which you can configure it. It can be very time consuming to get it just right, but the fact that both of those are right at the ready for you, as well as an indicator on how to line everything up when you go to put the grip on, was just very impressive to me right out of the gate. There's a ton of tension just in the base cam, just with your fingers, which lets me know that the load that you're going to be putting on the stick is very, very nice. You have your USB and your auxiliary ports right up front. These are very, very critical to pay attention to, guys. The USB cable is a 4-prong and the auxiliary cable is a 5-prong on the CM3 Base. You want to make sure that you do not mix those up. Now, with the USB cable alone, you can't mix them up. The 5-pin obviously can't plug into the 4-pin, but it is something you want to be cautious of so you don't do any damage.
The first thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to change the cams. I knew that I was going to be using the 200 millimeter extension cable, and so I wanted to change the cams out to a more aggressive and firmer cam, as well as the springs. So we're going to be taking a look at both of these. Now, all the tools that are necessary for this do come with the package. The 2 Husky Allen wrenches that you see there, those are mine. I do recommend using something bigger like that. It made the job a lot easier. You see there's the 4-prong USB cable that I was telling you about, and it's got a very nice locking system that locks into the base. I was actually really impressed by that as well. Like I said, all the construction seems to be very well thought out, and you have a bunch of different cams to show or to choose from. Now, I'm not going to be showing all of the cams and configuration as far as what they do. That is very well written in the documentation that is obviously available once you purchase the product. So let's go ahead and start by, first we're going to remove the bottom plate. Now you need a number 3 Allen wrench. Again, that does come with it, but I'm going to be doing my best to show you guys my tools. That way you can see the numbers as well. We're going to take all 4 screws out of the bottom, and then the bottom plate's going to come out. And we're also going to need to repeat the process with the 4 screws up on the top plate as well. Make sure that you only undo the 4 at the top in the corners. So here you can see we're pulling the final plate off, or the final screw off for the bottom plate. And they all are gripped as well. So you can actually just loosen them with your fingers and then pull them out as you just saw me do there. And look at this behemoth. This thing is fantastic. Now there is where the USB and the auxiliary port plate come in. You guys can see the pins there on the far left. You want to be very cautious of those, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. Here, I'm pulling off the top plate. Again, only the 4 far corner screws that you can see right there. It's kind of hard with my big old frying pan hands in the way. But I've already pulled the first 3 off. And then now you can see if you just try to lift it, you could do some damage. And that's because of the auxiliary and USB plate. Now you're supposed to pull that plate off, but you are also able to just slide the whole rail backwards, which I forgot to show, and I do apologize. But you can actually slide it back and carefully lift it out. But either one is up to you, but the documentation states to remove the USB and auxiliary plate. Okay, and that will actually pull the pins out. But I did find a different way around that, but keep in mind that was not according to documentation. Now there's the cam right there up on top. And then there, right in coming to the view at the bottom, that is the dry clutch right there. Again, offers just a little bit further adjustment to the tension. And we'll talk about all that later. And then there's the cam itself that I'm pointing at with my finger. You have a cam for the X-axis and you have a cam for the Y-axis, and you can adjust those independently if you wanted to, but I like to keep them very close together. And then there behind the circuit board there, you can see the dry clutch for the Y-axis. I might have those reversed. It's a little weird looking at it from this angle, but again, one for the X-axis, one for the Y-axis. But this thing is built so incredibly well. Look at it. It's all metal construction. This is fantastic. Now to remove the cams, we're going to need to pull those 2 screws out. But one of the things that I thought I was recording, but I didn't, is you want to pull the cam tension screws out first, which I'm going to demonstrate here in a minute. Now here you can see the difference between the 2 cams that we've selected. You only see one center hump there in the middle, and we're going to be replacing that with a bit more aggressive ones. So here is what I was talking about. To start removing the cams, you want to pull the tension screws out first. So you just pull the 2 plugs out from the top, and these screws have a ton of thread. So you're going to see a couple times there, and it's going to be the number 4 Allen wrench. But you're going to see a couple times there where I'm thinking that, okay, the screw has to be out, and it's just not yet. This thing goes for miles and miles, which is, again, is a good thing. The finer the thread, the more finer adjustments you can make to the tension and to the cams of your choosing. So like that is a perfect example right there. I'm thinking that, oh, it's out. Nope, it wasn't. You just have literally that much play in the cam that you can set. Now, you probably wouldn't want it that loose that your flight stick would flop around like a limp noodle there. So that probably wouldn't be the best thing to do, but it is an option. So first thing, we're just going to keep spinning and spinning until it comes out, guys, and eventually it will roll itself out. There you go. Look at that. Look at those fine threads. That's all thread count there at the tip. I mean, you do this. And then next, we need to take the gasket and the washer out. That white piece up on top that you saw briefly was the gasket, and there's a washer underneath it, and that's how we're going to get to the spring, but we'll talk about that in a minute. So now to put the cam in place, you can see that we just sort of goes right where the other one was. You'd lock the arm back up and put your tension screw back through. And we'll talk about how to do that here in just a minute. You can see I sort of got ahead of myself there.
but it does go on that arm. And the nice thing is the receiver on the end of the cam arm actually rotates, so it makes it a lot easier to rethread it. Now we're going to do the same thing with the other axis. And again, there you can see a better angle of it. The other one was a little bit harder to show, but you can see the receiver where the tension screw goes down into there at the bottom, and that whole cylinder rotates. So it makes it a lot easier to align it when it's time to put it back in. But again, we'll show that in a minute. And once again, just spin, spin, spin until you get the tension screw out. And these T keys that I got, I actually bought these specifically for this. I only had a standard Allen wrench set, and I realized, you know what, this is going to be a lot easier. But you can see how quickly that one fell out, so it went a lot better. Now next, we're going to remove the tension springs. And there is some silicone oil, it feels like, on it, so be ready for that. Unfortunately, I didn't have any on hand to re-oil the new springs that I replaced it with, but I haven't seen an impact as far as performance yet, but that is something that I will be addressing. Now we're going to remove the cam from the other side. I believe this is the x-axis. And although all the cams look similar, they all have a distinguishing factor to them. If you look there on the far right of the screen, you can see two of them there that have 3 holes in them and different notching up on top. They're all different, so it makes it easy to break them down. The other thing that's cool, and I think I show it later on in the video, is that they all have their own independent bags that are labeled. So as long as you keep the bags and you keep them in a safe spot, you'll always know which are which. Okay. I believe it comes default with the aerobatic cams in them. And again, I wanted something with much more tension with 0 detent. There is absolutely no detent in the ones that I'm replacing it with. So you cannot identify the center, which I like. It just simply rolls from one side to the other. And again, we'll be talking about that later on, but it was an amazing process. I was very intimidated when I first opened this up. I was very concerned. I was like, wow, this is pretty intense. The documentation for these is absolutely on par. You can find the documentation on Virpil's website if you guys want to take a look at that before purchasing, so you know what you're getting into. It's all available on the website under the support section, and was very, very well done. Everything's pictographed, or you know what I mean. There's pictures of everything. I can't think of the word. Sorry, it's late at night here. But everything was drawn out. The specific points that you need to address are highlighted in red, so you know exactly which pieces to go to. Now, when you go to tighten these back in, remember, you're not mounting a transmission of a car. Okay, don't over crank them, just an extra quarter turn and you should be fine, if even that. Again, you're not mounting a transmission to a car, so all right, so now we're going to work on replacing the springs. Now, I recommend getting a very tiny screwdriver, flathead, something small, and you're going to pull the gasket with the washer out on top of it. Notice they're stuck together, and they're actually stuck together with the grease. It's the grease that's holding them together. But you can sort of see you got the bushing and the washer up on top there. I'm trying to get the camera to focus on it. I had to move it off screen there, but there you go. So you want to keep those together. They're not fragile or anything like that. You just don't want to lose anything. And then just reach in there, and there is the spring. Now again, unfortunately, I didn't have any oil to replace on the new spring, but we are going to go ahead, and there's still a bunch of oil and grease, as you can see down inside the well there, so it shouldn't be an issue. Now here you can see that we've got the Okay, so here you can see this is their toughest spring. You can tell by how thick the coils are. If you compare it to their lowest end, you can sort of see the difference there. Actually, you can really see the difference there. Now, by default, their medium strength coil, or spring, excuse me, is in there. So you just simply slide it back down into the cylinder, put your washer and gasket back in. I'm trying to be careful not to wipe off any of the oil that's on there or the grease that's on there, because I don't want to lose it. Now, it'll sort of sit on top. You got to give it a little bit of a tap to push it down. It's not quite in its seat. There it goes. And you can sort of see there, that's a lot better how it's sort of recessed. Make sure it recesses down where it's supposed to go. Now, don't force it too hard because you don't want to break it. And then now it's just a matter of putting your cam tension screw back in. And again, that silver cylinder that it goes into will rotate if you need it to. And just a matter, again, couple things, don't force it.
Okay, make sure that you're being very, very light with the pressure on the threads. Because they are such fine thread, you can cross thread them, so you don't want to do that. Remember, fine thread means thin thread means fragile, if you will. Now, it would take quite a bit to do that. You would probably know pretty quickly if you were doing that, but you don't want to risk that. If you do cross thread them, you can damage the threads, you'll damage the receiver, and you just don't want to do that. And it spins right in. Once you get it, you'll know it because it just zips right through. I mean, look at that. That was with minimal effort. Okay, and then we're going to do the same thing with the other axis. Let's put that plug back on there, and let's get started on the other one. And again, it was the same game. They all came out very, very easily. I just used, I think that screwdriver was to an old eyeglass repair kit. You just need something small. You don't use a lot of pressure. You don't want to score or maim anything. So here, this one was a little bit more difficult to get out. So I just took a pair of needle nose. But if you notice, I didn't grab it. I just tried to sort of wiggle it out. And once that side released, I just brought it out. But again, I didn't force it. You don't grab it with the needle nose. Just simply let it pop out. Be very gentle with it. There's no need to use a lot of force. These things are machined so nice that everything just truly does fit that tight. And that's a wonderful thing. That's exactly what we want. You know, we want that kind of precision. We don't want the sloppiness, because any kind of sloppiness in the play would mean sloppiness in the mounting. And again, there's that oil-covered spring, so we're going to set that aside. And here you guys can, once again, so that's between the medium and the heavy on the tension springs. The gold is your heaviest. And that's what I like. And anytime, if you're going to be using a very a large extension like the 200 millimeter, I do recommend going with the heaviest, because your leverage point is going to be up so high that if you use a very light spring, it's sort of going to flop around with just the sheer weight. But that's, again, preference. You know, give it a shot, because at the same token, you have a lot of options. Even with the lighter tension springs, you have a ton of configuration customization. We're going to be talking about that later on, that even once you get your springs installed, we're not one and done. There's still more work to do to customize it to your liking and your comfort level. It's been a really interesting experience. I do fully intend to replace these cams with the other ones and try each setting out in a bunch of different configurations. All right, so now let's go ahead and get that last cam put in. Again, very easy to do, very simple and laid out, especially when I stop hitting the camera with my arm. And again, you can see that these screws are easily identified because they have a washer at the tip of them too. You want to make sure you get that. That way they can't come loose. It's a locking washer. Again, just an easy spin. And this is, I think, was my favorite part about the whole thing as I was doing this, was everything is so nicely machined. I didn't have any problems with anything. Like, everything just sank right back into where it was. There wasn't any, and guys, just so you understand that the comparison here, I've had the Thrustmaster Warthog for 6 years. I've had to take it apart multiple times to oil it and clean it. And I've had multiple issues with screws and things like that. Nothing crazy, but enough where like it caught my attention. And this was the easiest manufacturing or reassembly, I should say, that I've ever seen. It was so simple. Now you can sort of see it. There we go. The gasket pushed back in there. Now here's what I was talking about. I think if I remember correctly, I'll be able to show you guys the ability that the receiver can move. Again, with the number 4 Allen wrench. And you can sort of see me fighting this one a little bit there in the back. But it doesn't take me long to realize, there we go, that's me adjusting the receiver. Putting it upside down there, or right side up, get gravity on my side, and it fell right into place. And you can see it coming through there. And voila, we're done. But again, those cylinders can be turned to make it much, much easier. I just didn't catch that right at the beginning when I tried the first time.
It wasn't until I started messing with that that last arm there that I realized that it can move. So it really made a big difference. And I was really impressed by that. That receiver being able to be moved like that, again, just makes it that much easier to get it back together. Now, the next step we're going to do, obviously, we put the plug back in, and then it's time to start reassembling it to the housing. So let's take a look at that. Now, there, you can see there, that's where the pins for the auxiliary and the USB plug go into. Those are the pins I was telling you about in the beginning you got to be careful of. The documentation, again, specifies remove the auxiliary and the USB pin. But what I found is you can set it in the back. Notice that the pins are not connected. You can drop the whole thing down inside the shell there and then push it forward and it slides right in. Okay, so you can see I've sort of dropped it back, dropped it forward, and everything's fine. So I did want to show you guys that was an option if you didn't want to take that forward pin off. And again, I think that's ingenious. I don't know if that was intentional or if it just worked out that way, but it was so easy. I didn't have to force it. It wasn't like I was bending it or anything like that. It just slid back and slid right in. And then again, the reassembly process, very black and white. Simply put your screws back in the top and the bottom of it, and we are back and ready for square one. And so now we're just going to rinse and repeat for the bottom plate. Remember, the Virpil reads from top to bottom with the lettering facing up towards the USB. But honestly, I don't think it matters. It's completely symmetrical on all sides. So that part, it's neither here nor there. All 4 holes are in the same position. So it's not really something you have to worry about. But if you're like me and you're a stickler for things like that, and you like things to be just right, that's how you do it. So I'm just going to get all 4 of these screws back into their respective holes, and we'll be done with the CM3 cam change and spring change for the base. There we go. Now, one quick little tip here is I did get some of that grease on my fingers. I did find that a microfiber towel, a very soft microfiber towel, I would recommend if you wanted to clean this material with. It's a very nice brushed material, and I was worried about using anything more abrasive than that would scratch it. After a bit of polishing with a microfiber towel and a little bit of Windex on it, it came right off. You could probably use rubbing alcohol or something like that as well. So just a quick cleaning tip. All right, now that we have the beautiful base complete, you know what's next. What is the base without the main event? And that is the MongoosT-50 CM2 Grip. This thing is incredible. And again, the boxing following suit with everything else. Wait till you see the packaging on this, guys. Now, that QR code, if you use that, will take you to the pre-flight page of the Virpil website. And what that pre-flight page is all of your documentation, installation, configuration, all that good jazz. Takes you straight to it. That is extremely handy. That's what I used when I went to do the configuration there. So that was super handy. Now, again, with shipping the way it is these days, check this out, guys. No concern whatsoever here. Got a couple of dehydrant packets. Remember, don't eat it. It's not popcorn. But the grip was very, very well taken care of. And watch this. This is like the main event. Oh, wait, am I going to show you? You want to see it? Do you want to see it? Do you want to see it? Oh. All right, I'll show you. Anyways, you guys know I have to be a pain in the butt about something. So this material felt so cool the second that I pulled it out, and it was fine too, because again, Thrustmaster Warthog for 6 years, and moving to this at first, I was like, it's plastic. I don't know why I have avoided plastic grips like this for so long, like this. This specific material is super, super nice, and it feels good in the hands. It has absolutely everything that you would need for it. Now let's start talking about some of the great features on this thing. It has so many buttons and so many hats. The overall ergonomics of it. At first, when I first went to put my hand in there, I was a little worried because my bottom 2 fingers sort of felt weird. And then once the rest of my hand came around, it was just like, oh, well, that's nice. The buttons and hats in all the different positions that that they have there are very, very nice. I would say, with the exception of the far right two. I would say they're the hardest to get to. The top right gray button is actually very nice. It's really not that bad. It's convenient for something like a master mode. That far bottom right button, I wasn't crazy about. Now, the trigger is very interesting. That is actually a button itself. So when you flip it down, you can actually squeeze it and there is a button there. And then you can lift it up and get it out of your way. And then the trigger itself is a 2-stage trigger. The paddle switch I actually love. It's an analog stick, meaning that it's an axis point from full forward to full aft. We'll talk about that later on. This is a very awesome. If you are someone who has smaller hands or larger hands, you can actually adjust the palm rest or the, I don't know what you'd call that part of your hand. I can't think of it right now. Again, late at night, forgive me. But you can actually adjust the position of your hand on the top or bottom of the stick. So if you're someone, again, with a smaller hand, you don't have to worry about whether or not you're going to be able to reach all the buttons. You can lift that up to where it's comfortably resting your hand and you're still in a nice comfy spot. Really a fantastic design and well thought out. Again, those far right two, that bottom right one was the hardest, but even then not impossible. It's just going to be one of those things that you would set something that you want to make sure that you know that you're reaching for, that way you don't hit it by accident. So if there's a particular weapon system or maybe, a particular functionality in your spaceship that you're using, whatever it may be, that you don't want to hit by accident, that bottom right button would be perfect for that because it's very purposefully reach. You have to really go out of your way to get to it, but it's not uncomfortable. It just, that you're reaching for it. And again, the material feels so solid. I was blown away and it feels cool. Like I said, the texture of the material is very comfortable, I don't know how to describe it, guys. I don't know what to say. It doesn't feel plasticky. It doesn't feel cheap. It doesn't feel weak. It doesn't feel like some of the other competitors out there, for the lower end stuff. It feels like a very strong, dare I say, military grade plastic. I was very, very impressed with the build of the CM2. Okay, and so remember, the whole reason why we changed out the cams and increased the tension was because we wanted to use the 200 millimeter extension. Now, this thing is, again, very, very awesome, and I was really impressed with the ergonomics of it the most. But again, with the unpacking, I promised you guys I wouldn't leave anything out. So here we are. Again, very, very well taken care of. It was in a box of its own. Now, the biggest challenge with this particular piece was the bag. I have found out that you have to be smarter than the object you're working with, and I was not showing that in the beginning. The bag was winning. But luckily, perseverance prevailed, and I was able to defeat the bag and get the rest of it out. Now, check this thing out, guys. Again, and all this material, I can't tell you how cool it all feels. It's almost like a brushed metal, and it just feels so nice. If I were to take a bet, it's been through a sandblaster, but I can't tell. But it's really, really nice. Now, I don't show it in this video, but the plugs can actually be lifted out. Not that side, but the entry port. So the bottom side there, that's actually the top we're looking at there. Again, there's the arrow indicating how you need to plug in the grip. But that bottom plug there actually can be pulled out to make plugging it in significantly easier. And you will see that in the next segment of the video where we actually plug it into the CM3 base. So let's go ahead and start working on that. So again, now you can see that I've pulled that plug out. It makes it very, very easy. Now you don't want to go yanking on it. It's just a nice gentle pull and it slides right out. And then plug it into the CM3 base. Again, matching up the pins. Pay attention to the arrow. This one's a little hard to put on camera, so I did the best that I could. But the biggest thing is just watch the pins. Compare the pins from one side to the other before you plug it in. Take your time. You don't want to bend these pins. You don't want to risk damaging the extension. Okay, so just please, please, please pay attention to the pins. That's the biggest tip that I can give you there. But they are the same as with the Thrustmaster Warthog, so if you're used to that, it shouldn't be any issue. Now again, on the grip, same thing. You can pull the plug out and set it up on top. Again, this was a bit harder to show on camera because the damn thing is so tall, but I just did the exact same thing as we did there on the base and plugged the grip up to the top and then screwed it down. Now, what's really nice is when you break the screw threads loose a little bit is you can actually orient the grip to a comfortable position on your hand. So you know, if you like to, I basically, what I do when I'm doing center stick is I'll actually kick the grip over to the left a little bit, so that way my hand is in a very natural position resting on it, and I don't feel like I'm bending it one way or the other and hurting my wrist over extended use. So it's a very, very, very effective system. And here is the completed assembly of the CM3 base with the CM2 grip and the 200mm extension. And I just love it. It looks so elegant and so professionally done. I'm super impressed with this build. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the VPC, or the Virpil Desk Mount. Now, this is the version 4-S. And the desk mounts I really enjoy. There's a couple things that I'm not too crazy about, and we'll talk about those in just a second. However, the overall build of the product is phenomenal. Okay, so let's go ahead and get it unbagged, and we'll talk about it. The things that I don't like about it, you guys will find, I think, is very subjective, and it's really a preference thing. But let's go ahead and get it out of the bag here. Obviously, once again, they give you tools, mechanics, get another 10mm, or 10mm? Yes, 10mm spanner. It's got a 10 and an 8 on each side as well. So there you go. We got 2 wrenches today, no sockets, but 10mm wrench is a 10mm wrench. So all of your tools and mounting screws necessary do come with the product, and that one's nice and pretty and shiny. The other one wasn't shiny, so I was very impressed with that, because anything that's shiny is something that deserves a lot of attention. So we're going to make sure that we give it its moment there. All right, and then like I said, you have different screws. There's one of my dogs. They're in the background. I'm surprised you guys never hear him. Oh, there's the other one. Had to make his appearance. Inside the bag, you have two different sets of screws. The first set of screws is a short one and a long one, and allows you to change the distance of the clamp, which we'll talk about later on, and the other 4 are for mounting the desired bracket, which we'll definitely get into here in a little bit. So first, get the bag unwrapped here. This one I was a little bit more cautious with, because I know it's got the edges there on the end. I didn't want to tear anything or scratch the table, even though my kids have already taken care of that. Trust me. I was in the dining room today because, well, quite frankly, it's got the best lighting in the house. So I had to go with something here. We're working on getting the proper equipment to do these reviews a bit better, but it's still working out. But look at that. Now, what I do absolutely love is it still has that quick release clamp on it. It's not a screw clamp. I am not a fan of the screw clamps. I really don't like them. I like these quick clamps significantly better. They're much easier with the adjustments. Now, we are going to have to make some adjustments, and I'm going to show you guys how I would do that here in a little bit. The first nut that we're loosening there allows you to set the locking position of the screw. So you'd rotate that up, and then you can rotate the actual foot itself up or down. So the foot itself is going to screw down into the base. First, we have to get, there we go, the spacer. That's all that is a spacer. Again, adding further customization and further configuration options to suit your particular setup. It really is quite a phenomenal design. I was very, very impressed with this. It has more configuration features than some of the other mounts of this style that I have seen before. And again, we're going to get to the things that I don't like about it, but so far I was very, very impressed. So what I'm going to do is I need to remove this one. I found this one is too long. One of the ways that you guys can tell right away, what I'd recommend doing is putting the foot in the fully extended position as it is right now. So right now is where you can see the red handle is facing the bracket there in the back. Okay, that means that the arm is extended. What you want to do is sort of get an idea of the distance between the foot and the top of the mount and the thickness of your desk or wherever you're mounting it to. And then sort of change your screw from there. So here you can see there it is retracted, and that's the distance I'm talking about. And then you want to sort of extend it and then add a couple threads to it. And we'll see what that looks like here in just a second. Okay, so for mine, I actually need to do a couple things. So the first thing that we need to do is pull the black foot off, okay? And it just peels away. You just grab it with your fingertips and sort of gently peel it away from the washer there. Then we're gonna first remove the entire set. So we're gonna pull the entire screw out. So you'll see that the entire thing breaks free here in just a second. Took a little finagling. There it goes. That's the whole thing coming out. So we're gonna unscrew all of it. And again, it's got a ton of thread on it, so you have a ton of adjustment options. And I'm going to replace it with a smaller screw, which is that one directly underneath my hand there on the left, the longer of the two, but without the spacer is what mine needed in order to comfortably fit it. So you're going to see, I'm just going to unscrew the spacer. Then we're going to take the lock nut off, which is that top one. And then we're going to have to remove the second locking nut, which is holding the screw to the washer. And for that, I do recommend, guys, you're going to need a second 10mm wrench or a 10mm socket on one side. If you try to do it with your hand here, it just didn't work. So luckily, we had that second 10mm, not like I didn't have a ton of them in the garage, but I didn't feel like going out there. So luckily, Virpil thought of everything, and I already had that second one that we got earlier. So we're going to put one there. Because remember, one came with the throttle, and the other one came with the mount. And then just turn them opposing, break that nut free, and again, spin it all the way down so we can get the washer out and replace the screw. I recommend trying to come up with a cool song or something while you do that, but you know. Take the washer off, separate the screw, and now replace it with your desired setting. And you can see the difference there. We're just taking a quick step down. We're not going with the shortest one. Put our washer back on. Then you need the locking screw to hold the screw to the washer, or the locking nut, excuse me. And again, take your two 10mm wrenches or a 10mm socket on one side, however you want to do it. Honestly, the socket probably would have been easier, but this was just as fast. And tighten down. Again, not mounting a transmission, just enough tension. Now, I put the spacer back on here to show you guys, but I actually didn't need it. But don't forget the locking nut that goes above the spacer if you do need the spacer. As I said, I determined that I didn't need the spacer, so here I'm just taking the spacer back off. Leave the locking nut that goes above it on because you'll need that to secure it to the to set the distance correctly. But simply put the screw back in. And there you guys can see what the spacer does. I needed to go a bit shorter than the spacer was allowing. And there you have it. Set my desired distance. And remember, that nut that I'm spinning there locks the distance. Once you have it set where you want it, you need to make sure you take that locking nut and tighten it up. That way the pin can't rotate as you disengage and re-engage the clamp, because it will cause it to wiggle a little bit. Put your foot back on. And simply go and test it against your surface. Then it's just a minor of maybe a couple thread adjustment here and there to get it into the position that I needed it to be in, and it worked beautifully. All right, so now we're going to talk about putting on the mounting bracket for the MongoosT-50 CM3 Base. I'm going to get it. I told you I was going to get it right at least once. Again, the packaging, absolutely phenomenal. No concerns there whatsoever. The paint is very, very well protected, and all the hardware and mounting screws that you need are available in a very easy to reach package. Now notice that we've also got the 4 bolts that we saw from the package earlier. Those are going to be used up in front. Those are for the actual mounting bracket as well. So you got a couple different options there as far as which ones to use, and actually you got a couple spares. This all comes together very, very nicely. I was very impressed. It's a very simple process. Now, this is actually where, however, my complaint about the mount comes in. I'm sure you guys were wondering about that. The adjustment process as far as figuring out where you want it. I don't like that it uses the bolt holes on the side. I wish there was some sort of sliding mechanism where you could just release a clamp, slide it down, lock it up. But again, that's subjective. That's my personal opinion. That is not a design flaw. It's just a design preference. But I told you guys I'd call out what I'd like and don't like as I see it, but that's the best I could come up with. There's one other thing that I will discuss here in just a moment once we get it all complete that I would have a preference on, but not required. So in order to get these two pieces together, okay, we're just going to, this is the bracket that actually mounts to the mount itself. And then the other plate there is the CM3 base mount. Okay, remember there was a plethora of configurations. So the fact that they broke them up like this actually is very, very nice. Now notice the orientation of the pieces that we have there. The bracket mounting brackets go up, not down. Otherwise, you'll have to pitch it, in a very weird way. I recommend putting your screws in first to hold it in place. Turn it over on side. Then it's just a matter again of using the supplied wrench. I believe this is where the 8mm comes into play. It could be the 10. I don't remember. No, it is the 8. It is definitely the 8. And then I believe it's number 4 Allen wrench on the other side. But I'll be sure to show you guys like that. That I've done the entire video here. And again, the documentation for it is on par. Absolutely no issues with the documentation on the construction. I think the documentation for this actually was one of the best that I have seen. And I think the reason why is because they highlight in red the specific points that are of interest to you at that particular stage of design. It's very, very well done. So I was right. It's the number 4. There you go. Put the 4 on your Allen wrench and then the number 8 spanner on the other side to hold it in place. And then just a matter of tightening the screws down. Again, going to keep stressing it. These are not engine mounts. You don't have to crank them. You don't have to see how hard you can turn them and see if you can create an indentation in the metal. The idea is just snug with maybe another 1/4 to 1/8 inch turn, if that. Nothing too crazy. If you're having to use a pry bar to get the Allen wrench back out, you're probably screwing it down too tight. So again, snug plus a 1/4, if even that. I don't even know if I would call that a 1/4 turn. I knew there was one I was missing. There it is. So the whole design process here, or build process, is time consuming. But it's very, again, it's the customization. It's the quality of the build that I think I was most impressed with. Nothing I have touched yet felt cheap. Nothing I have felt made me go, oh, this is going to hold it. Now this part is very, very cool. Very, very easy. So you're going to, it just mounts right on top up in front. First thing that we need to do is we're going to pull those first 2 screws out, pull the plug out, and then loosen those 2 back ones that I tapped on. You don't have to pull them all the way out. You just need to loosen them because they have a nice channel. But watch this process, guys. Again, your number 3 Allen wrench. This is so slick. This was very, very well thought out. I really enjoyed this design. Again, there's our 2 corner screws. They come all the way out. Then the next 2, just lift them up a little bit, just enough where the bracket, the mounting bracket, can slide under. I gave myself a little bit higher just to have a little bit of wiggle room to get the other 2 screws back in case I wasn't holding it perfectly plumb, which you'll see that I did. Or did not, I should say. I did not hold it plumb. So it just slides under there like so. I tighten the screws down on the corner screws. But again, being able to have that wiggle room is why I left those other screws a bit higher. And again, because of that fine machining, you know when you get that screw because it just slides right down the channel. Super, super simple. Very well thought out process. Very good construction. I love that everything is metal, especially when we're dealing with the weight that we're dealing with. This stuff is pretty heavy. You wouldn't want to drop it on your foot. I can tell you that right now. Dropping that base on your foot, you're going to come up with some new words. And again, snug plus a little hair. That one was a bit looser than I anticipated. And there we go. Put the plug back in its new spot. And you're ready to mount. Now here is, again, I was talking about the mounting process was a little bit less than what I would have liked, but I understand how it's functional, and it does absolutely work. But I'm going to give you guys a little tip. So the two mounting brackets for the CM3 base, they go inside the desk mount brackets, okay? So if they don't fit, just sort of snug them in there if you need to. And then here are your 4 mounting bolts for it. What I recommend is when you get to your desk, mount the desk mount on the desk. Get your number 5 Allen wrench. That's what you're going to need to mount these. But take your screws and don't put the nuts on them. Just sort of slide them in, adjust it to where you want them to be, and then put your bolts on and lock them down. But other than that, guys, that is it. And once you get it all configured the way you like, you have yourself a nice finished product. Okay, so the second complaint, quote unquote, that I have, and it's really subjective and opinionative, is that the desk mount sticks out a bit further than I would like. However, that is because I'm also using the 200 millimeter extension. I should have requested a shorter one. That was completely my fault. With a shorter extension, I'd be able to move the mount higher up the desk mount and therefore bring the stick closer to the desk. And the reason why is I like a side stick mount instead of center line. So again, personal preference, not really a design flaw. This is really great quality. All right, my friends. So now it is time to start looking into the software side of things. So we're going to go to Virpil's website. A link to it will be down in the description below, of course. And we're going to go over to the support portal, and we're going to come down to software. Now here, we're just going to grab the latest release of the software and grab it from right here. And as that downloading, there's a couple of guides you can reference as well that walks you through the installation of the software itself and things to be mindful of. Gives you a couple of quick tips. The other thing, the biggest thing that I want you guys to realize, I guess, is at this point is very likely, if you have already purchased them, that you may have already plugged all of your devices in. It's time to unplug them. The only thing that we're going to want plugged in initially is the base. Once the base is installed and the firmware is done, then we will plug in the grip. Once the grip is installed, we'll check and make sure it doesn't have another firmware update, and we'll create the profile. And then once that is done, then we will plug in the throttle and run the software update yet again. This is a process I have tested, and it has worked thus far. But one thing that I do want you to be aware of, give me just a second. You do want to, it is recommended that you connect your Virpil devices directly to the motherboard USB ports, meaning if you are using a USB hub, it is recommended that you do not do that for the initial configuration, is my understanding. My understanding is afterwards, I believe there isn't any issue with that. Now, I will tell you guys very honestly, I plugged mine into a USB hub. I took the risk, and that is only because my PC is actually pretty far away from where I have all of my controls set. But I do want to make sure that you guys are seeing that the recommendation is to plug directly into the motherboard. Okay. And then the other one is the first line here. If you have multiple Virpil devices, it is necessary to connect them one at a time until the initial setup is completed. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. There's a few other guides that I'd recommend. VPC software setup, again, just gives you some more information about the latest change logs to the software. And then there is also, do I need to use the VPC software, which I do recommend taking a look at as well. You feel free to pause the screen and read through this so you guys can see the statement. All right, other than that, let's go ahead and get started with the rest of the configuration. Okay, so now that we have the VPC software downloaded, we need to extract it. So I'm just going to use 7-zip, extract to the same downloads directory, open it up, and run the executable. Make sure this comes up top. There we go. I'm going to leave it in its default directory. I don't have any problem with anytime I'm dealing with third-party softwares that have to deal with drivers and things like that. I like to keep them close to home, meaning close to home is on the C drive. So I'm going to go next. And Pro mode, we're going to leave unticked for now. They do recommend also that we have VPC devices USB filter on. So we're going to go ahead and click that. And I'm going to go ahead and create an icon for the VPC shift tool. Now we're just going to be using the tester and the basic setup today, but you know, if it's available, why not? We might play around with it later on throughout the review process over the next few videos. Go next, install, and launch the software. Okay, I'm going to bring this up top. Now give me a second. Let me do that. There we go. Okay, so first thing we can see here is it's found the base. Okay. Again, the grip itself is currently not plugged in. Right now, the only thing is the CM3 base. So I'm going to highlight that. It's going through the calibration. Now I'm going to go down to the firmware here and start the auto firmware update. Brings up a warning, just letting us know that any previously saved profiles will be removed. So make sure you back those up if you do have some. We're going to hit OK. Let it run through the process. Takes a little bit less than a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and just let it hold. You will see the device connect and disconnect a few times. There's the disconnect. Almost done here. Okay. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and plug the grip in. Again, paying attention to the arrows. And you can see here, you want to make sure you select the correct grip. The T-50 CM2 is what I'm doing. Do not mistake that with some of these other ones here. So make sure you pick the right one if you're doing the exact same hardware that I'm using. Okay. Then we're going to come down and we want it on the right for the flight stick. So some older games do not register any buttons over 32 on a single device. So what this will do is if you run into that particular situation where it's only registering 32 devices or 32 buttons, but you know that you have more than that, you want to go ahead and check this, and it will split it in basically into two controllers. It's a single device, but from the software side, your game will register it as two different controllers and give you full functionality of your grip or throttle, whichever one you happen to be battling with. In our case, I don't think I'm going to run into that particular situation, so I have the VPC, T-50 CM3 as the base selected. I've got my grip selected. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and select Create Profile. Now, I might have done this actually out of sequence. I can't remember now, but I'm going to go ahead and go to the axis assignment and calibrate the axis as well. So from here, I'm going to go to Calibrate Axis. And what we're going to do is just rotate the stick in its full range of motion. And move the analog stick to its full range. Okay, it's good enough for me. And save calibration to profile. Okay, so now that is done, I'm going to go ahead and close the software. I'm going to unplug my base the CM3. And now I'm going to plug in the throttle. Now I want to give you guys a tip to the throttle. The throttle has 2 5-prongs on it. Now there's supposed to be a 4-prong, which is for USB, and a 5-prong for auxiliary. I notice on my CM3 throttle that it is 5 prongs on both. So be very, very careful. You do not want to accidentally plug it in to the auxiliary. You still need to use the USB port. If you're plugging it in so your computer will see it, think USB. That's all you have to do. I'm going to my computer. I want my computer to see my throttle, USB. Okay. So even though they are both 5-prong on the throttle, you want USB. All right. My throttle is now connected. I'm going to relaunch our software here. I think I grabbed the wrong one there. Nope, I did. Okay. There's the throttle. I'm going to let it load. And we're going to do the same thing first. I'm going to go to the firmware, start the auto firmware update. Tells us the same thing we saw on the grip, or the base, I should say. And once again, we'll let this part continue. And we're good. Now for the throttle, we don't have to select anything else here. You can see we've got our Mongoose with the 5-way mode modifier. That's the one with the 5-way rotary right here. We've got the T50 CM3 throttle selected over here. I'm not going to worry about any of this. We don't have to worry about the twist grip. Doesn't have it. So we're just going to hit create profile. And once that's complete, we're going to do our axis calibration again. And let's start going through the different axes. So we're going to go calibrate. Got the mouse. Make sure if you're using the finger lifts on your throttles that you lift them up so you get the full range of motion. And I am, oh, there it is. The flap control. All right. So once we have all of our axis assigned and calibrated, we can hit save calibration to profile. And now that's complete. I'm going to go ahead and close the software one more time. I'm going to plug the base back in so we have all of our devices connected. And now if we relaunch the software, we should be able to see everything. And there's everything. Now we can go to our VPC joist tester, which will allow us to test all of the buttons, verify that they're working. Now you can see it's picking up everything that I have. I am going to simply select the Virpil stuff. So you can see right VPC, that's going to be our stick, and then the throttle. So here's the stick. And we got something pulsing, which I'm not sure why. Oh, there we go. Interesting. Okay. Testing the hat. Testing all of our positions. And what's nice is when you're testing is it records everything What am I missing here? I feel like I'm missing a hat. Okay. And let's see, what am I missing? That's good, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good, that's good. Trying to find it. There's another one, and I'm just missing one more. There we go. There it is. All right, so we know all the buttons are working there. And if you want to, you can do the same thing with your throttle. And you guys get the idea. And this thing has so many, it is very hard to keep up with. Very, very hard to figure out all the buttons here. There are so many to pick from here. Okay, I think I'm getting there. Still missing some. I'm not sure which ones yet. Anyway, you guys don't have to sit here and suffer through this agony. But I did want to show you guys that this feature was available. Oh, there's another one right there. And I am still missing a few that I guarantee are on here somewhere. I'm just not tracking it down yet. There's another couple. Anyway, you guys got the gist from here. So let's go ahead and close this out. And now I'm going to go into DCS World, bind just a few controls, and get an idea of what the flight experience is like with this particular aircraft. And no, I do not believe we have to have the software running in order to use the aircraft. So let's get into DCS. All right, guys. So welcome back to DCS World in this situation where we do a Virpil test. Now, I have gone through and configured much of the controls. What I can tell you right off the bat is I have all of the controls necessary in the HOTAS section that I wanted. Okay, not what I could, but everything that I wanted to have from the HOTAS is bound between the two devices. You have the left VPC throttle and right VPC stick. And everything that I personally wanted to have is bound. And I still have plenty of buttons left over on both devices. So that's the first awesome part. Like, I was a little amazed at how much I was really able to get on here. Like, you don't really realize it until you start programming and going, now what? You know, like, I mean, that's exactly where I was at. Like, I have more on there than what I even realized that I needed. So today, again, in this particular segment, we're just going to be talking about the flight stick, the grip, and then in the next video, you guys will see the same preview from the throttle standpoint. So let's go ahead and get the aircraft moving. I'm going to keep the track IR and everything turned off. That way you guys can just see a nice relationship of the aircraft in comparison to the hand movements I'm making on the throttle, or on the grip, excuse me. Remember that I do have the extension removed, and you guys should be able to see why once we get into the video. You'll see that I like the side stick configuration quite a bit better. So let's go ahead and get started with our flight. Go. All right, so let's go ahead, and I need to release the parking brake. And let's get taxied out. Like I said, I'm leaving all of the track IR and all that good jazz disabled for this video, so you can simply see the relationship of the aircraft in comparison to the flight stick. The flight stick, again, feels very, very nice. I'm sitting here holding it, and it feels very, very natural. I like the tactile contact of each of the buttons. They all have a very distinct depression, a nice click sound to them. So if you're someone who enjoys the clicky, like myself, it is very, very pronounced with the Virpil controls. So we get taxied out to the runway here. And again, I'm not going to speak anything to the throttle in this video. If you guys are interested in the throttle, be sure to check out the next one. And again, these will be releasing back to back, and I'll try to remember to put a link to each of the corresponding videos down in the description for you guys. Let me get that mic up a little closer. There we go. This is my first takeoff attempt with the Virpil configuration. You guys are seeing everything live for the first time. I'm a little nervous. It's very touchy, very touchy. I mean, it's just, but those cams are amazing. I can feel no center detent. I mean, just nothing. Oops, forgot to reduce my rudder input when I turn on high nose wheel steering. That was my bad. All right, it has been a while. Let's see if I remember how to take off in an F-18, shall we? Let's get her lined up. Okay. All right, adding power in. Brakes released. We're at mil power. Wait, airspeed alive, disengaging the nose wheel steering. Ooh, baby. Looking for about 140 knots. There we go. Gently pulling back. Ooh. A little rotation there, but I actually had left rudder input, and it looks like we got a bit of a crosswind too. So let me get my gear up. It's so smooth. Wow. So we're just going to look for a minimum angle turn here, or minimum speed. You guys know what I'm looking for. I want to rotate slowly. Look at that rotation. And it just holds. Throw it back the other way. The response is insane. It feels very similar to what I would anticipate a F-16 stick flying or feeling like. Obviously a bit more input, as with the F-16. I think it moves even less than this. But now let's try a high speed or a high rotation. So quite a bit more pressure. Now remember, the cams that I put in this were designed for the extension. Okay, so that is something that you do have to consider. I am pulling pretty hard, as I'm sure you guys can see on camera. Again, it was designed to be used with this. So, you know, my leverage point is significantly lower than what I had anticipated when I initially installed these springs or these cams. Now, one thing I'm not liking is it's a little too touchy. So let's work on something here. Let's fix that. I'm going to pause the sim. And I'm going to take, first, I'm just going to try tightening up the dry clutches. So I'm going to pull the stick back a little bit, take our number 3. I hope you guys can see that. And righty tighty, lefty loosey. So I'm going to tighten it down quite a bit. That might have been too much. But you guys can see what that does. So it doesn't spring back like it did. It still comes back, but not near as well like if I loosen it. Okay. You guys can see it's much more loose. So that's just one of the 2 configuration options that you have very quickly exposed to you, or at your ready, I should say, not exposed to you. That sounds like a virus. But at your ready, let's do the same thing for the left and right, the x-axis. The x-axis is pretty loose. I was playing around with these earlier today while I was working, and I think I got them a little too loose, especially on the roll. That's why I think part of why I was so goofy at takeoff. I was just sort of playing around with them, trying to get a head start, and it's one of those things where I don't think you realize what you want until you're in it. So here we go again. So now I'm going to have to still continue to play with this a little bit, because now it's too tight on the x-axis. It's not springing back enough on either direction. So I'm having to bring my hand physically back to the position that I want it. But I'll tell you what's a neat aspect of this, where that particular feature, the fact that the stick stays where you want it until you move it back, where that's really going to be handy is in a helicopter. Okay, flying the UH-1 around, that's going to take so much weight off your wrists. It's going to take a lot of necessity for the force trim that it has out of the game. You're going to be able to just put your cyclic where you want it and leave it alone, and the aircraft will hold its position. Now, one of the things that I already do like very much about it is I feel like I'm far more in control of the aircraft. One of the things I tend to do when I try to do the inside loops like these is I tend to roll one direction or the other. And I am following almost in the center of the pitch scale, almost following my exact same line. And that is a milestone for me, guys. I'm telling you, not my style. Now that one, I came off of it, but that's because I rotated it on purpose. But all the way through the top of that loop is probably one of the best that I've ever done in that. And I know that sounds silly. Oh, wow, he did a loop. I did a straight loop following the same line. And for me, that's a big difference because it lets me know that I have a better control of what the aircraft is doing. So it's definitely going to be something that I think what the Virpil offers right out of the gate is extreme customization to your liking. You can really tweak this flight control to your liking, whether you change the cams, whether you change the tension springs, whether you adjust the cams or the tension springs to your liking. Once you have them in, you can really do a lot of tweaking and a lot of customization to make it your own and make it very, very comfortable for you. So yeah, like I said, these are a little too tight. I'm going to actually, while you guys are here, I'm going to show you guys one more time. I'm just going to adjust these a little looser. Do I have the right one? Nope, I don't. Oh, yes, I did. Yes, I did. It's number 3 for the dry clutches. Loosen them back up just a hair. Let's see what we get now. And that is just smooth as glass. It is very touchy, and it's something that you're going to have to get used to. Guys, I have been flying the Thrustmaster Warthog for 6 years. I've been flying DCS with the Warthog, and this is a night and day experience. I have been saying for years that if my Thrustmaster Warthog were to break today, that I would turn around tomorrow and buy another one. My opinion as far as the flight stick, I think just changed. Now, obviously, we still have more testing to do. I have more flying to do. I have more customization to do. I want to try out the other cams. I want to try out the different configurations. I want to really get an idea of what it has to offer. But as far as overall configuration, I'm blown away. I mean, just what it has. I mean, it feels so smooth. It's so smooth. I've never owned a piece of equipment of this kind of quality. I just haven't. And I'm extremely impressed and I'm blown away, and I've got the butterflies going. I've got the flight simulation butterflies. That's for sure. Let's see what we can do about maybe like a gun run on something. I don't want to find anything civilian or anything like that, but maybe just a road or a bridge. Let's get started here. So I'm going to flip my master arm on. Let's go to air to ground mode and let's select the gun. All right, let's see what I can find. It's a little weird not having my track IR to scan for targets, but let's get some altitude here. And let's just roll it over. I'm sort of just going to pick a spot, so that's why we're going so high. Let's bring that down. I'm going to pull the throttle off a bit. And there, that white spot right there. Let's see how quickly we can get on target. Way too steep, but let's see here. Oof. Wow, that was awesome. So let me give you guys a comparison to previous equipment that I've mentioned. This thing is absolutely astonishing. It feels so smooth and it feels so well built. Even with the high tension cams that I have in here, or high resistance cams with the heavy tension springs. So what happened is I was pulling out of that gun run. I was coming out like this, and my lift angle obviously wasn't high enough to come out of that dive. As I started to pull back, it was intense, and I really had to pull. Like, I had to pull pretty hard. At the same token, it felt really freaking cool. It was like, all right, that's not enough. All right, let's give it to it. Yeah, manpower. I don't know. But it was a really awesome experience. And if you notice, things that I would have done before using the previous equipment that I mentioned, I would find myself pulling out of things like that and constantly rotating, rolling the wings one direction or the other. Now, that is absolutely still a fault of mine. I'm not going to blame the previous equipment for that. Just because obviously I never learned how to keep my hand perfectly straight and really pay attention to the forward and aft axis. For some reason with this and all the different configuration options and all the different ways that I was able to customize the tension in the right places for my hand and my arm and my build, made it very easy for me to keep that straight pull out until I was ready. And then if I wanted to, I could, make a turn one way or the other for my egress. The holding the strafe angle, once I got the gun sight on target, now that's my first time ever doing that. So it was a little weird. I'm not gonna lie, it was a little odd. But once I realized, hey, whoa, stop fighting it. What initially was happening is I was fighting it because I'm used to doing that again with the previous gear that I've used. I would always kind of do like this, like, all right, get it on. And next, I'm 1,000 feet away by the time I'm squeezing the trigger. Now I did the same thing. I got very, very low, but it's because I was thinking I had to do the same thing. Once I realized, like, dude, just let the stick do what you're asking it to do. And you saw the gun sight got up on our target and just stayed there. It just freaking stayed there. And that was a truly amazing experience. I've told you guys a few of my complaints about this product. As far as its performance in this flight so far, my initial flight performance, I don't have any complaints. I don't have anything to give you that's negative. I don't have anything to say that, they need to change this. I'd really like to see this changed at this time. Now, we're going to be doing this for a couple of weeks. I'm going to be flying Microsoft Flight Simulator with this. We're going to be doing everything. Every time I'm in a flight simulator, I'm going to be using this for the next few weeks to make sure that I truly give it the deep dive, do some more programming. I've already mapped all of my controls for DCS that I want. So that part's done. I can't, there isn't much more to say about mapping the controls from my standpoint. As far as the controls and control availability, this thing is phenomenal. You can customize this in 100 different ways and probably still have buttons left over. I mean, I'm thoroughly impressed with the buttons that are available to it. The feeling on it is fantastic. All of my fingers lay exactly where they should lay. Nothing is too awkward to reach. Very, very impressed. I think I got some schmutz on it. This is a wonderful piece of equipment, and I'm very, very grateful for the opportunity to review this, and I'm looking forward to the next couple weeks of really putting it through the paces. But I can tell you right now that my initial impressions of the Virpil T50 CM2 Grip and the T50 CM3 Base are above par. They're the best that I've ever had the pleasure of using. Now, that's not to say there aren't others out there, but this is the best that I have seen. And the price point, that was my first thing. When I first got offered the opportunity to look at this, we'll talk about the price point. I was very intimidated by the price point. They're expensive. I'm not going to hide that. I'm not going to pretend like they're not. It is an amazing, high quality, beautiful product that is, in my opinion, at this time, worth every dime. They're so well built. And the cool thing about the base, don't let the cost of the base fool you too much or discourage you if that's something that you guys are looking at. Because once you buy the base, you can buy all the different grips and you never have to buy the base again unless for any reason you decide to get a second one. If you were doing like Star Citizen, you want 2 flight sticks or something. But once you buy the base, then it's just a matter of buying the grip that you want, like a grip that really has my attention. And I think I'm going to drop the money on for this during my review here is the F-14 Tomcat. I know it's not called the Tomcat. I can't remember what the exact terminology is, but I want it. It looks really cool. And so all I have to do is buy the grip, take this one off, plug the other one in, configure it, and off you go. And then if you want to swap in and out, it's very, very easy. So it makes it easy to change what you're doing. Like I said, especially if you're someone who's a Star Citizen player, a DCS World player, maybe a Microsoft Flight Simulator or X-Plane, something like that. Maybe what's that other one? Farm Simulator, where you can use the tractors and stuff. All those things are incredible adjustments that can be made, or you know what I mean, incredible features that can be used with these particular products. I'm stumbling over my words a little bit, guys, because I wasn't expecting this. I was expecting good. Don't get me wrong. I was expecting good. I wasn't expecting this good. The finite control that I have in this aircraft right now is astounding. I'm blown away. If I want to make a nice gentle turn, it's so easy to make a nice gentle turn while maintaining my pitch. I mean, the pitch just doesn't move unless I want it to. You know, and again, some of this I'm going to have to tweak. And some of the pitch that you're seeing move there, for example, that's just the lift of the wing changing. As we level out, the wing's going to lift a little bit. We're going to gain more lift. As I dip the wings down, you're going to lose lift, and so you're going to descend a bit. But I mean, this thing is great, absolutely fantastic. So that is my assessment of the or my initial impressions of the T50 CM2 Grip, as well as the TM50 CM3 Base and the VP4 or version 4 Desk Mount. Again, the only thing that I don't like about the desk mount is I wish there was an easier way to change this. I don't really like how long this is. I wish that it was closer, up tighter. I wish there was a way to just take this and mount it directly to it somehow. But that's my biggest gripe. Other than that, it was still very easy. This morning when I took the extension off, as you can, I don't know if you guys can tell from the video, but I actually moved this up and it took 2.5 seconds. I mean, it really was fast. It wasn't a big deal at all. So I probably am making far more of a gripe for it than I need to. But yeah, that's going to end part 1 of this series. Be sure to guys check out part 2 where we go over the throttle, and during the throttle, we'll also do a landing of the F-18, so you guys can see what that's like with the two pieces combined. The throttle is another very exciting piece of hardware that I've refrained this entire time from talking about on purpose. It has been very, very difficult. I have wanted to comment on quite a few things with the throttle, so stick around for the next video, guys.